The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty compound as Lieutenant Sarah "Ghost" Martinez adjusted her gear for what intelligence reports promised would be a routine reconnaissance mission. At 28, she had already completed 3 combat deployments and earned her place among the Navy's most elite warriors through sheer determination and an almost supernatural ability to remain invisible in hostile territory. Sarah's path to becoming a Navy SEAL had been anything but conventional. Growing up in a small Texas town where the biggest excitement came from Friday night football games, she had always felt different from her peers. While other girls her age focused on makeup and dating, Sarah spent her afternoons running cross-country and practicing martial arts at the local community center. Her father, a retired Army sergeant, recognized something special in his daughter's fierce competitive spirit and unwavering dedication to physical fitness. The decision to join the Navy came during her senior year of high school when a recruiter visited her school. Sarah had been accepted to several universities on athletic scholarships, but something about the challenge of military service called to her in ways that civilian life never could. Her parents were initially concerned about their daughter's choice, especially when she announced her intention to attempt SEAL training, but they had learned long ago that once Sarah set her mind to something, there was no changing it. SEAL training, officially known as Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL training, pushed Sarah beyond every limit she thought she had. The physical demands were crushing, but it was the mental warfare that nearly broke her. Instructors seemed determined to find her breaking point, using every psychological tactic in their arsenal to force her to quit. They questioned whether a woman belonged in their ranks, whether she had the physical strength to carry a wounded teammate to safety, whether her presence would distract male operators during critical missions. Sarah endured each challenge with quiet determination. When instructors made her carry logs that were proportionally heavier for her smaller frame, she adapted by developing superior technique and leveraging her lower center of gravity. When they questioned her stamina during long-distance swims in frigid ocean water, she proved them wrong by consistently finishing in the top tier of her class. Most importantly, when they tested her mental resilience through sleep deprivation and constant harassment, Sarah demonstrated an almost zen-like ability to compartmentalize stress and maintain focus on the mission at hand. The turning point came during Hell Week, the legendary 5.5-day ordeal that breaks roughly 70% of SEAL candidates. Sarah's class had started with 43 candidates, but by the third day, only 18 remained. The combination of hypothermia, exhaustion, and relentless physical challenges had claimed victim after victim. Sarah found herself struggling more than she had ever imagined possible, her body screaming for rest while her mind battled waves of self-doubt. During one particularly brutal exercise involving boat races in heavy surf, Sarah's team was falling behind badly. The rubber boat they were carrying felt impossibly heavy, and her teammates were beginning to show signs of giving up. Without saying a word, Sarah repositioned herself to bear more of the boat's weight, somehow finding reserves of strength she didn't know existed. Her quiet leadership and refusal to quit inspired her teammates to push harder, and they finished the race in second place. That moment crystallized something important for Sarah's instructors. They realized they weren't just watching a woman trying to prove she belonged with men, they were witnessing a warrior who happened to be female. Her gender became irrelevant compared to her character, determination, and tactical intelligence. From that point forward, the harassment decreased and was replaced by the same respectful but demanding training given to all elite candidates. Graduation from SEAL training was just the beginning of Sarah's journey. She spent the next 2 years in advanced training programs, learning everything from advanced marksmanship to foreign languages, from underwater demolition to high-altitude parachute operations. She excelled in sniper training, where her patience and attention to detail made her one of the most accurate shooters in her class. Her small stature, which had once been seen as a liability, proved advantageous for concealment and stealth operations. Sarah's first deployment took her to Afghanistan, where she served as part of a special operations team conducting night raids against high-value targets. Her ability to move silently through hostile territory earned her the nickname Ghost from her teammates. Local insurgents began spreading stories about an invisible American warrior who could appear and disappear without warning, striking fear into enemy ranks even when she wasn't present. During one memorable mission, Sarah's team was tasked with capturing a Taliban commander who was coordinating attacks against coalition forces. Intelligence indicated the target would be meeting with other insurgent leaders in a compound outside Kandahar. Sarah was positioned as an Overwatch sniper on a hilltop nearly a mile from the target location, providing security for her teammates as they moved in for the capture. Everything was going according to plan until a patrol of Taliban fighters stumbled across Sarah's position. She found herself alone, outnumbered 6-1, with enemy fighters closing in from multiple directions. Radio contact with her team was impossible due to the distance and terrain features that blocked communications. Sarah faced a choice: abandon her Overwatch position and retreat, potentially leaving her teammates exposed, or stay and fight against overwhelming odds. The decision was never really in doubt. Sarah had sworn an oath to never leave a teammate behind, and that oath extended to providing the security they needed to complete their mission safely. She began engaging the Taliban fighters with precision rifle fire, using her superior training and equipment to offset their numerical advantage. Each shot was carefully aimed, and each shot found its target. The engagement lasted nearly 30 minutes, with Sarah systematically eliminating threats while constantly changing positions to avoid return fire. Her knowledge of advanced fieldcraft allowed her to use the terrain to her advantage, appearing to fire from one location before quickly moving to another, creating the illusion that she was part of a larger force. The psychological effect on the remaining Taliban fighters was devastating. They began to retreat, convinced they were facing a much larger American unit. By the time Sarah's teammates completed their mission and reached her position, they found her calmly reloading her rifle while 6 enemy fighters lay dead around the hillside. The Taliban commander had been captured successfully, and valuable intelligence was recovered from his compound. Sarah's actions that night had not only protected her team but had also eliminated a significant threat to coalition operations in the region. Word of Sarah's performance spread quickly through special operations communities. She had demonstrated not just technical proficiency with her weapons, but also the kind of tactical thinking and emotional control under pressure that separated true warriors from ordinary soldiers. Her superiors began considering her for increasingly challenging assignments, recognizing that her unique combination of skills made her invaluable for certain types of missions. Sarah's second deployment took her to a different theater entirely, where she was assigned to a joint task force conducting counter-terrorism operations in East Africa. The mission parameters were different from Afghanistan, requiring more cultural sensitivity and intelligence gathering rather than direct action. Sarah's language training and ability to blend into urban environments made her perfect for undercover reconnaissance work. It was during this deployment that Sarah first encountered the type of mission that would define the next phase of her career. Working with local intelligence assets, she spent weeks developing information about a terrorist network that was planning attacks against American interests in the region. The work required patience, cultural understanding, and the ability to operate independently for extended periods without support. Sarah's success in East Africa led to her selection for an elite unit that specialized in deep reconnaissance and direct action missions in denied territory. This assignment would take her to some of the most dangerous places on Earth, where American forces officially didn't operate and where capture would mean torture and death. The psychological pressure of such work was enormous, but Sarah had already proven her ability to thrive under the most extreme conditions. Now, as she prepared for what should have been a routine surveillance mission, Sarah had no way of knowing that the next few hours would test every skill she had learned and every ounce of courage she possessed. The intelligence briefing had indicated minimal enemy presence in the target area, but combat had taught Sarah that intelligence was often incomplete and situations could change rapidly. Her team consisted of 4 operators, all experienced veterans who had worked together on multiple previous missions. There was Rodriguez, the team leader with over a decade of special operations experience; Thompson, a communications specialist who could establish contact with headquarters from virtually anywhere; Williams, a demolitions expert whose knowledge of explosives was encyclopedic; and Sarah herself, serving as the team's sniper and reconnaissance specialist. The mission objective seemed straightforward enough: establish surveillance on a suspected arms dealer who was reportedly supplying weapons to insurgent groups throughout the region. The man operated from a compound in what intelligence described as a relatively peaceful area, where the local population was generally friendly to American forces. Sarah and her teammates would infiltrate the area, establish observation posts, and gather intelligence about the arms dealer's operations and associates. As Sarah checked her equipment one final time, she felt the familiar pre-mission mixture of anticipation and calm focus that had become second nature during her years as a SEAL. Her rifle was perfectly zeroed, her communications gear was functioning properly, and her emergency medical supplies were organized for quick access. She had learned long ago that attention to such details could mean the difference between life and death in hostile territory. The team would insert by helicopter under cover of darkness, then move of the helicopter insertion went flawlessly, with the aircraft touching down just long enough for the four-person team to deploy before disappearing back into the night sky. Sarah and her teammates found themselves in a landscape of rolling hills dotted with sparse vegetation, exactly as the satellite imagery had indicated. The air was cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of dust and distant cooking fires from nearby villages. Moving through the darkness with practiced stealth, the team covered the 3 kilometers to their target area in just under 2 hours. Each operator carried approximately 60 pounds of equipment, including weapons, ammunition, surveillance gear, communications equipment, and supplies for a 3-day mission. Despite the heavy loads, they moved silently across the terrain, using natural vegetation and terrain features for concealment. Sarah separated from her teammates at the predetermined point, moving alone toward her designated sniper position while Rodriguez, Thompson, and Williams continued toward the compound for closer observation. The isolation felt familiar and comfortable to Sarah, who had always preferred working alone when possible. Solo operations allowed her to move at her own pace, make decisions without consultation, and maintain the absolute silence that had earned her the nickname Ghost. Her chosen hide site was a low ridge overlooking the target compound, with excellent fields of observation and multiple escape routes if the situation deteriorated. Sarah spent nearly an hour carefully preparing her position, arranging camouflage materials to break up her outline and testing sight lines to ensure she could observe all approaches to the compound. The location provided concealment from ground observation while offering a commanding view of the entire target area. The arms dealer's compound consisted of 3 main buildings arranged around a central courtyard, surrounded by a low stone wall that offered minimal security. Intelligence reports indicated that the suspect typically conducted business during daylight hours, meeting with potential customers in the courtyard or the largest building. Sarah's mission was to photograph these meetings, identify participants, and gather intelligence about the scope of the arms dealing operation. As dawn broke over the hills, Sarah settled into her rifle scope and began systematic observation of the target area. The compound appeared exactly as described in the intelligence briefings, with normal civilian activity beginning to stir in the surrounding village. Children played in dusty streets while women carried water jugs and men prepared for daily work. Everything looked peaceful and routine. The first 12 hours of surveillance proceeded without incident. Sarah observed several vehicles arriving at the compound, photographed license plates and occupants, and transmitted regular status reports to her team leader. The arms dealer himself appeared around midday, matching the physical description provided by intelligence sources. He spent most of the afternoon meeting with various visitors, conducting what appeared to be normal business activities. Sarah's teammates reported similar observations from their closer positions. Thompson had established communications with headquarters and confirmed that the mission was proceeding as planned. Williams had identified several possible weapons storage locations within the compound, while Rodriguez coordinated the overall surveillance effort and maintained security for the team's observation posts. By the second day, patterns were beginning to emerge in the target's activities. The arms dealer met with the same core group of associates each morning, reviewing documents that could potentially be weapons manifests or shipping schedules. Vehicles arrived and departed at regular intervals, suggesting an established distribution network. Sarah's photography was providing headquarters with valuable intelligence about the scope and organization of the arms dealing operation. It was during the afternoon of the second day that Sarah first noticed something was wrong. Through her rifle scope, she observed several vehicles arriving at the compound that didn't match the pattern of previous visits. These vehicles carried men who moved with military precision, wore similar clothing styles, and appeared to be conducting security sweeps of the area around the compound. Sarah immediately reported her observations to Rodriguez, noting that the new arrivals appeared to be conducting counter-surveillance activities. The team leader acknowledged her report and instructed all team members to increase their security measures while continuing the mission. The presence of security personnel around the arms dealer wasn't necessarily unusual, but their professional demeanor and systematic search patterns were concerning. As evening approached on the second day, Sarah's concerns proved justified. Her radio crackled with an urgent transmission from Thompson, who reported observing armed men moving through the village in what appeared to be a coordinated search pattern. The men were questioning villagers and examining areas where foreign forces might establish observation posts. Rodriguez made the decision to abort the mission and move to the extraction point immediately. The intelligence they had gathered was valuable, but the risk of compromise was increasing rapidly. Sarah began breaking down her position while maintaining observation of the compound, ready to provide covering fire for her teammates if they were discovered during their withdrawal. The situation deteriorated rapidly as darkness fell. Williams reported armed men approaching his position from multiple directions, forcing him to abandon his observation post and move to an alternate location. Thompson lost radio contact entirely, suggesting either equipment failure or enemy jamming of communications frequencies. Sarah found herself alone on the ridge, watching through her rifle scope as armed figures began systematically searching the area where she knew her teammates were located. The first shots echoed across the valley just after midnight, coming from the direction of Rodriguez's last known position. Sarah could see muzzle flashes in the darkness below as her team leader engaged multiple attackers. Through her night vision scope, she counted at least 8 enemy fighters moving to surround Rodriguez's position, with more arriving from the village. Without hesitation, Sarah began engaging targets with precision rifle fire, using her elevated position and superior optics to provide support for her surrounded teammate. Her first shot eliminated a fighter who was attempting to flank Rodriguez's position. Her second shot struck another enemy fighter who was directing the attack. Each shot was carefully aimed to maximize effect while conserving ammunition. The effect of Sarah's intervention was immediate and dramatic. The enemy fighters, who had been coordinating their attack through voice communications, suddenly found themselves under fire from an unknown location. Several fighters were struck down before they could identify Sarah's position on the ridge. The attack on Rodriguez's position faltered as enemy fighters sought cover from the unexpected sniper fire. But Sarah's intervention also revealed her location to the enemy forces. Within minutes, she observed armed men beginning to move up the ridge toward her position. A quick count through her rifle scope revealed at least 12 fighters approaching from different angles, clearly intent on eliminating the sniper who had disrupted their attack. Sarah faced a critical decision point. She could abandon her position and attempt to escape, potentially leaving her teammates to face overwhelming odds alone. Alternatively, she could remain in position and attempt to hold off the approaching enemy forces, giving Rodriguez and the others time to break contact and move toward the extraction point. The decision aligned perfectly with everything Sarah had been taught about the SEAL ethos and her personal code of honor. She had taken an oath to never abandon a teammate, regardless of personal risk. Her elevated position provided the best observation of the tactical situation, and her precision rifle gave her the capability to influence the battle even against superior numbers. Sarah transmitted her decision to Rodriguez via radio, informing him that she would remain in position to provide overwatch while the team moved to the extraction point. Rodriguez initially protested, recognizing the extreme danger Sarah would face alone against multiple attackers, but he also understood the tactical reality. Without Sarah's covering fire, the team's chances of reaching the extraction point alive were minimal. The first enemy fighters reached Sarah's general area just as she spotted Thompson moving across an open area below. 2 insurgents had positioned themselves to ambush the communications specialist, and Sarah engaged both targets with rapid, accurate fire. Thompson continued moving toward the rally point, unaware of how close he had come to walking into a deadly ambush. Sarah's rifle fire was having a significant psychological effect on the enemy forces beyond the physical casualties she was inflicting. The precision and timing of her shots suggested professional military training, causing enemy fighters to move more cautiously and hesitantly. They were clearly dealing with a trained sniper rather than a conventional infantry soldier, and their tactics reflected growing respect for their opponent's capabilities. As more enemy fighters reached the ridge, Sarah was forced to engage targets at increasingly close range. Her original position had been compromised by muzzle flashes, forcing her to move repeatedly while maintaining fire on targets below. Each movement required her to quickly establish a new firing position while remaining concealed from the fighters hunting her. The enemy's numerical advantage was beginning to tell as they coordinated their Sarah's tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly as enemy reinforcements continued to arrive at the compound below. Through her night vision scope, she counted at least 25 armed fighters now participating in the coordinated assault on her position. The original arms dealer's compound had transformed into a military command post, with enemy leaders directing search teams and establishing communication networks to coordinate the hunt. The sophistication of the enemy response indicated that this had been a carefully planned trap rather than a chance encounter. Intelligence suggested the arms dealer had been working with local insurgent groups to identify and eliminate American surveillance teams. Sarah and her teammates had walked into an elaborate ambush designed to capture or kill special operations personnel. Despite the overwhelming odds, Sarah maintained her composure and continued engaging targets with deadly precision. Her elevated position provided excellent observation of enemy movements, and her superior training allowed her to predict and counter their tactical approaches. Every shot she fired forced the enemy to reconsider their assault plans, buying precious time for her teammates to reach the extraction point. Through her earpiece, Sarah received updates on her team's progress toward the predetermined pickup location. Rodriguez reported that the team was moving steadily through terrain that offered good concealment from pursuing forces. However, enemy search parties were systematically checking possible escape routes, forcing the team to take longer, more circuitous paths toward safety. Sarah's immediate concern was ammunition conservation. Her rifle carried a 20-round magazine, and she had started the mission with 10 additional magazines in her equipment vest. The sustained firefight had consumed more than half her ammunition supply, requiring increasingly careful target selection. Each shot had to disable an enemy fighter or significantly impact their tactical capabilities. The enemy forces were adapting their tactics in response to Sarah's accurate fire. Instead of advancing in large groups that presented easy targets, they began moving in smaller teams using terrain features for concealment. This forced Sarah to engage targets at longer ranges and at more difficult angles, requiring greater precision and patience. As the third hour of the engagement began, Sarah observed enemy fighters attempting to establish a mortar position in the compound below. The crew was setting up an 82mm mortar that could deliver indirect fire onto her general location, potentially forcing her to abandon her defensive position. Sarah immediately prioritized this target, engaging the mortar crew with rapid, accurate fire that eliminated 2 operators and damaged the weapon system. The destruction of the mortar position had an immediate effect on enemy morale and tactical planning. The fighters had been counting on indirect fire to dislodge the sniper from her position, and losing that capability forced them to rely on direct assault tactics that favored Sarah's defensive advantages. Enemy leaders could be seen through rifle scopes arguing about alternative approaches to the problem. Sarah's radio crackled with a transmission from Rodriguez providing coordinates for close air support that was en route to the area. A pair of Apache attack helicopters had been diverted from another mission and would arrive in approximately 30 minutes. Sarah acknowledged the transmission while continuing to engage targets moving up the ridge toward her position. The promise of air support provided both hope and additional tactical challenges. Sarah needed to mark enemy positions for the helicopters while avoiding engagement areas that might put the aircraft at risk. She also had to ensure that her own position was clearly identified to prevent friendly fire incidents during the close air support mission. Enemy fighters were now within 200 meters of Sarah's position, requiring her to engage targets at close range while preparing for possible hand-to-hand combat. She carried a sidearm and combat knife in addition to her rifle, but those weapons would only be effective if enemy fighters managed to reach her position before reinforcements arrived. Sarah's training in escape and evasion techniques became crucial as she planned potential withdrawal routes from her current position. The ridge offered several possible escape paths, but all would require her to move through areas where enemy fighters might be positioned. Her night vision equipment provided a significant advantage in darkness, but enemy forces had demonstrated their own proficiency with night fighting techniques. Through her rifle scope, Sarah observed enemy commanders establishing what appeared to be a command post in one of the compound buildings. Several leaders were coordinating search teams and reviewing maps of the surrounding terrain. Sarah realized that eliminating these commanders could significantly disrupt enemy operations and improve her chances of survival. The command post presented a challenging target due to its location within the compound buildings, but Sarah had trained extensively in urban sniper operations. She carefully studied the target through her scope, identifying windows and doorways that might provide clear shots at enemy leaders. The range was approximately 800 meters, well within her rifle's effective capabilities. Sarah's first shot struck an enemy commander who was pointing at a map while briefing subordinates. The effect was immediate chaos within the command post as remaining leaders sought cover while trying to maintain control of their forces. The psychological impact of losing leadership under fire created visible confusion among enemy fighters throughout the area. The elimination of enemy commanders began to fragment the coordinated assault on Sarah's position. Without clear leadership and communication, individual search teams began operating independently rather than as part of a unified plan. This tactical breakdown provided Sarah with opportunities to engage smaller groups of fighters who were no longer supporting each other effectively. Sarah's radio transmitted coordinates to the incoming Apache helicopters, directing them toward concentrations of enemy fighters while marking her own position with an infrared strobe visible only through night vision equipment. The helicopters acknowledged her transmissions and requested final confirmation of target locations before beginning their attack runs. The sound of approaching helicopters had an immediate effect on enemy forces below. Fighters who had been aggressively pursuing Sarah's position suddenly began seeking cover and defensive positions. Some enemy vehicles attempted to leave the area, while others established concealed positions to engage the aircraft. Sarah provided real-time target information to the helicopter crews, identifying enemy positions and weapons concentrations through her elevated observation post. Her accurate reporting allowed the helicopters to engage targets with maximum effectiveness while avoiding potential threats to the aircraft. The Apache helicopters began their attack with devastating precision, engaging enemy vehicles and concentrations of fighters with 30mm cannon fire and Hellfire missiles. The psychological effect was overwhelming as enemy forces found themselves under attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Sarah continued engaging targets on the ridge while the helicopters decimated enemy forces in the compound below. Enemy resistance began to collapse under the coordinated assault from ground and air forces. Fighters who had been aggressively hunting Sarah minutes earlier were now focused entirely on survival and escape. Vehicles that could still operate began evacuating survivors, while others abandoned their positions and fled on foot into the surrounding countryside. Sarah maintained her position long enough to ensure that enemy forces were fully engaged with the helicopters before beginning her own withdrawal toward the extraction point. Her teammates had successfully reached the pickup location and were providing security while waiting for her arrival. The extraction helicopter was en route and would arrive within minutes. Moving carefully down the backside of the ridge, Sarah used terrain features and remaining darkness to conceal her withdrawal from any surviving enemy forces. Her night vision equipment allowed her to navigate safely while avoiding areas where scattered enemy fighters might still pose a threat. The extraction proceeded smoothly with Sarah reaching the pickup point just as the helicopter arrived. Her teammates provided covering fire while she boarded the aircraft, which immediately lifted off and headed toward friendly territory. Looking back at the target area, Sarah could see fires burning in the compound where enemy vehicles had been destroyed. During the helicopter flight back to base, Sarah conducted immediate after-action reporting with her team leader while medical personnel checked her for injuries. Remarkably, she had emerged from the 3-hour firefight without wounds despite being outnumbered more than 20-1. Her ammunition supply was nearly exhausted, with fewer than 30 rounds remaining. Initial intelligence assessments indicated that Sarah's actions had eliminated the aftermath of Sarah's extraordinary performance during the ambush operation created ripple effects throughout the special operations community that extended far beyond the immediate tactical success. Military analysts studying the engagement identified numerous lessons about individual combat effectiveness, team coordination under extreme stress, and the psychological impact of superior training and equipment against numerically superior forces. Sarah's after-action report provided detailed insights into the decision-making processes that had enabled her to survive and triumph against overwhelming odds. Her systematic approach to target prioritization, ammunition conservation, and tactical positioning became required reading for sniper instructors and special operations planners throughout the military. The report demonstrated how proper training and mental preparation could overcome seemingly impossible tactical situations. The intelligence gathered during the mission proved even more valuable than initially anticipated. Analysis of photographs and communications intercepts revealed that the arms dealer had been part of a much larger network supplying weapons to insurgent groups across multiple countries. The disruption of his operations created significant gaps in enemy supply chains that would take months to rebuild. More importantly, the sophisticated nature of the ambush indicated that enemy forces had been studying American special operations tactics and developing specific countermeasures. The arms dealer's compound had been deliberately chosen as bait to lure American surveillance teams into a trap where they could be captured or eliminated. Sarah's team had unknowingly participated in a larger intelligence warfare battle between American and enemy forces. The psychological impact of Sarah's actions extended throughout the local insurgent community and beyond. Stories spread rapidly among enemy fighters about an American sniper who had single-handedly defeated multiple assault teams while protecting her teammates. The tales grew in the telling, describing an almost supernatural warrior who could appear and disappear at will while delivering precise, deadly fire from impossible ranges. These stories had a measurable effect on enemy morale and tactical planning. Insurgent groups became much more cautious about engaging American forces, knowing that any engagement might include highly trained snipers capable of devastating accuracy. The mere possibility that someone like Sarah might be present changed enemy behavior patterns and reduced their operational effectiveness. Sarah's commanding officers recognized that her performance represented more than just individual heroism. It demonstrated the effectiveness of the training programs and selection processes that had produced such a capable operator. Her success validated years of investment in developing female special operations personnel and proved that gender was irrelevant when measuring combat effectiveness. The mission also highlighted the importance of integrated air-ground coordination in modern special operations. Sarah's ability to provide accurate target information to the Apache helicopters had been crucial in turning a desperate defensive action into a decisive victory. Her training in close air support procedures and communication protocols had been as important as her marksmanship skills. Within weeks of the mission, Sarah found herself selected for additional advanced training programs that would expand her capabilities even further. Military leadership recognized that operators of her caliber were rare resources that needed to be developed and employed carefully. Her next assignment would involve training other special operations personnel in advanced sniper techniques and survival skills. The training program Sarah would lead focused on preparing operators for situations where they might find themselves isolated behind enemy lines with minimal support. Students would learn advanced camouflage and concealment techniques, long-range marksmanship, and the mental conditioning necessary to operate alone under extreme stress for extended periods. Sarah's reputation within the special operations community also brought opportunities for cross-training with allied forces from other countries. International military units were eager to learn from an operator who had demonstrated such exceptional performance in actual combat conditions. These exchanges would provide Sarah with exposure to different tactical approaches and equipment systems. The mission's success also contributed to broader policy discussions about the role of women in special operations units. Sarah's performance provided concrete evidence that female operators could perform at the highest levels of military service when properly trained and equipped. Her success helped influence decisions about expanding opportunities for women throughout the special operations community. However, Sarah remained focused on practical concerns rather than policy implications. Her primary interest was in becoming an even more effective operator and helping train the next generation of special operations personnel. She understood that her individual success meant little unless it contributed to the overall effectiveness of American military forces. The technical aspects of Sarah's performance during the ambush became subjects of detailed study by military researchers. Her ammunition expenditure rates, target engagement sequences, and movement patterns were analyzed to identify techniques that could be taught to other operators. The data provided valuable insights into optimizing individual performance during high-stress combat situations. Sarah's gear and equipment were also subjected to thorough evaluation following the mission. Every piece of equipment she had carried was tested and analyzed to determine how it had performed under combat conditions. The feedback provided manufacturers with real-world data about equipment effectiveness and reliability that couldn't be obtained through laboratory testing. The rifle she had used during the engagement became almost legendary within the sniper community. The weapon had delivered over 200 accurate shots during a 3-hour period without experiencing any mechanical failures or significant accuracy degradation. The performance validated design choices and maintenance procedures while providing confidence in the reliability of similar weapons. Sarah's night vision equipment had also performed flawlessly throughout the engagement, providing crucial advantages that had enabled her to engage targets effectively in darkness. The technology had allowed her to identify and prioritize threats while remaining concealed from enemy observation. Future procurement decisions would be influenced by this demonstrated effectiveness. The communications equipment used during the mission had maintained reliable contact with team members and supporting aircraft throughout the engagement. Sarah's ability to coordinate with Apache helicopters had been crucial to the mission's success, demonstrating the importance of interoperable communication systems for special operations forces. Military medical personnel conducted extensive physical and psychological evaluations of Sarah following the mission to understand how the human body and mind responded to such extreme stress. The data would be valuable for developing training programs that prepared operators for similar situations while identifying potential health impacts of prolonged combat exposure. Sarah's psychological evaluation revealed remarkable emotional stability and resilience despite the intense stress of the engagement. Her ability to maintain clear tactical thinking while under fire from multiple directions demonstrated the effectiveness of mental conditioning programs used in special operations training. The findings supported continued investment in psychological preparation for elite military personnel. The mission also provided valuable data about ammunition consumption patterns during sustained individual combat. Sarah's careful ammunition management had been crucial to her survival, and her techniques became part of training curricula for future special operations personnel. The importance of shot discipline and target prioritization was reinforced through her example. Recovery and maintenance of Sarah's equipment after the mission. 5 years after the mission that made her legend, Sarah Martinez stood before a classroom of elite military instructors at the Navy's premier training facility, sharing the lessons that had been learned through blood and determination in the mountains of a distant war zone. The students before her represented the next generation of special operations personnel, each one carefully selected for their potential to perform at the highest levels of military service. Sarah's role had evolved from operational sniper to master instructor, a transition that allowed her to multiply her impact by training dozens of other operators who would carry her techniques and mindset into future conflicts. The classroom was equipped with advanced simulation equipment that could recreate the tactical situations she had faced, allowing students to experience similar challenges in a controlled environment. The training program Sarah had developed became known throughout the military as the most comprehensive individual combat course available to American forces. Students learned not just technical skills like marksmanship and tactical movement, but also the mental conditioning necessary to maintain effectiveness when facing overwhelming odds. The curriculum integrated lessons from Sarah's mission with broader tactical principles developed over decades of special operations experience. Each training cycle began with students studying Sarah's after-action report in detail, analyzing her decision-making processes and understanding the factors that had contributed to her survival and success. The report had become a classic case study in individual combat effectiveness, required reading for military personnel throughout the special operations community. Sarah's teaching methods emphasized practical application over theoretical knowledge. Students spent extensive time in field exercises that simulated the stress and complexity of actual combat situations. She believed that training had to be harder than combat itself to properly prepare operators for the realities they would face in hostile territory. The psychological aspects of combat received particular attention in Sarah's curriculum. She taught students how to manage fear and stress while maintaining tactical effectiveness, drawing on her own experiences during the ambush mission. The ability to think clearly under extreme pressure was identified as the most crucial skill for survival in desperate situations. Students learned advanced camouflage and concealment techniques that went far beyond standard military training. Sarah's ability to remain hidden while engaging multiple targets had been crucial to her survival, and she passed these skills on through detailed instruction in natural camouflage, movement techniques, and position selection. The training emphasized adaptation to different terrain and environmental conditions. Marksmanship instruction focused not just on accuracy, but on shot placement, ammunition conservation, and target prioritization under stress. Sarah taught students how to make split-second decisions about which targets pose the greatest threats and how to engage multiple enemies efficiently. The training included extensive practice with different weapon systems and ammunition types. Communication skills received equal emphasis with combat techniques in Sarah's program. Her ability to coordinate with air support and maintain contact with team members had been essential to the mission's success. Students learned advanced radio procedures, close air support coordination, and techniques for maintaining communication in hostile electronic environments. The training program also addressed equipment selection and maintenance, areas where Sarah's experience provided valuable insights. Students learned how different gear performed under combat conditions and how to optimize their equipment loads for specific mission types. The emphasis was on reliability and redundancy rather than carrying the most advanced technology available. Sarah's students came from all branches of the American military and included allied personnel from partner nations. The international aspect of the program reflected recognition that the tactics and techniques she had developed were valuable beyond American forces alone. Foreign students returned to their home countries carrying these skills and training methods with them. The success rate of Sarah's training program was measured not just by graduation statistics, but by the performance of her students in actual combat operations. Graduates of the program consistently demonstrated superior individual combat effectiveness and survival rates when deployed to hostile environments. Their success validated the training methods and justified continued investment in the program. Sarah also served as an advisor to military equipment manufacturers, providing feedback based on her combat experience and the performance data collected from her students. Her input influenced design decisions for weapons, optics, communication equipment, and protective gear used by special operations forces worldwide. The legend of Sarah's mission had grown over the years, inspiring countless young people to pursue military careers and specifically seek assignment to special operations units. Recruitment offices reported increased interest in military service following publicity about her achievements, particularly among women who saw her success as proof that gender barriers could be overcome through determination and skill. Sarah's story had also influenced popular culture, with books, documentaries, and films depicting her mission and its aftermath. While she maintained a low public profile for security reasons, the basic facts of her performance had been declassified and shared to inspire military personnel and demonstrate American military capabilities to potential adversaries. Military historians placed Sarah's mission within the context of American special operations development, noting how her individual performance represented the culmination of decades of investment in training, equipment, and tactical development. The mission demonstrated that properly prepared individuals could achieve extraordinary results when facing seemingly impossible odds. The technological advantages that had contributed to Sarah's success continued to evolve, with new generations of equipment incorporating lessons learned from her mission and others like it. Night vision technology, communication systems, and weapons accuracy had all improved based partially on feedback from her combat experience. Sarah's influence extended beyond military circles to academic institutions studying leadership, performance under pressure, and gender integration in traditionally male-dominated fields. Business schools used her story as a case study in decision-making under extreme stress, while psychology researchers analyzed her mental conditioning and performance optimization techniques. The broader implications of Sarah's mission for American military doctrine continued to be debated and refined years later. Her demonstration that individual operators could significantly influence tactical situations had implications for force structure, training priorities, and equipment procurement decisions throughout the military establishment. International military relationships had been strengthened by sharing the lessons learned from Sarah's mission with Allied forces. Partner nations appreciated American willingness to share tactical knowledge and training techniques, building trust and cooperation that extended far beyond military affairs into diplomatic and economic relationships. Sarah's personal journey from small-town Texas to elite military instructor represented broader themes about opportunity, determination, and the changing nature of American society. Her success had opened doors for other women seeking military careers while demonstrating that excellence could emerge from unexpected backgrounds and circumstances. The training facility where Sarah now taught had been expanded and upgraded to accommodate growing demand for the specialized instruction she provided. The investment in infrastructure reflected military leadership's recognition that the techniques and mindset she taught were crucial capabilities for maintaining American military superiority in an increasingly complex global security environment. Looking toward the future, Sarah continued developing new training methods and tactical approaches based on evolving threat environments and technological capabilities. Her program adapted constantly to address emerging challenges while maintaining focus on the fundamental principles of individual combat effectiveness that had enabled her survival during that legendary mission. The mission that had made Sarah famous represented just one example of the daily heroism and professional excellence demonstrated by American Special Operations Forces worldwide. Her story served as inspiration for current and future military personnel while providing concrete evidence of what properly trained and equipped individuals could accomplish when defending American interests and protecting their teammates. Years later, as new conflicts and challenges emerged around the world, the lessons learned from Sarah's mission remained relevant and applicable. The principles of individual excellence, tactical adaptability, and unwavering commitment to teammates that she had demonstrated continued to guide American Special Operations Forces as they faced new threats and protected American interests in an uncertain world. Sarah Martinez had transformed from a small-town girl with big dreams into one of the most respected military instructors of her generation, proving that extraordinary achievement was possible for anyone willing to pursue excellence with complete dedication. Her legacy lived on through the hundreds of students she had trained and the countless lives that would be saved through application of the techniques and mindset she had developed through her own trial by fire in hostile territory. Revealed important information about how gear performed under sustained combat conditions. Weapons cleaning procedures, equipment durability, and performance degradation patterns were all analyzed to improve future equipment design and maintenance protocols. The broader intelligence community analyzed enemy tactics and capabilities demonstrated during the ambush to improve threat assessments for future operations. The sophistication of enemy planning and coordination indicated higher levels of training and organization than previously recognized. This information was crucial for protecting other American forces operating in similar environments. Sarah's mission reports contributed to updated tactical guidance for special operations units operating in contested environments. Her techniques for position selection, escape route planning, and engagement priorities became standard elements of pre-mission planning for similar operations. The lessons learned would potentially save lives in future engagements. The success of the mission also validated investment in advanced training programs for special operations personnel. Sarah's performance demonstrated that the time and resources devoted to creating elite operators could produce extraordinary results when those operators faced impossible odds. Military leadership used her success to justify continued funding for such programs. International military observers studied Sarah's performance to understand American special operations capabilities and training methods. Allied forces were particularly interested in sniper training techniques and individual combat effectiveness. The mission demonstrated American technological and training advantages that influenced international military cooperation agreements. Approximately 15 enemy fighters while disrupting a significant arms-dealing network. The psychological impact of a single American sniper holding off multiple assault teams would likely affect enemy morale and tactics throughout the region. Local insurgent groups would be forced to reconsider their willingness to engage American Special Operations Forces. Sarah's performance during the mission earned recognition from higher military authorities and resulted in recommendations for decorations recognizing her courage and tactical excellence. More importantly for Sarah, all members of her team had survived the mission and returned safely to base, fulfilling the most important obligation of any military operation. The mission also provided valuable intelligence about enemy capabilities and tactics in the region. The sophisticated nature of the ambush indicated higher levels of organization and planning among local insurgent groups than previously understood. This information would be crucial for planning future operations and protecting other American forces operating in the area. As Sarah completed her mission debrief and prepared her written reports, she reflected on the lessons learned during the engagement. The importance of ammunition management, position selection, and coordinated tactics had been reinforced through actual combat experience. Most importantly, she had proven to herself and others that her training and determination could overcome seemingly impossible odds when protecting teammates and accomplishing mission objectives. Arch of the Ridge. Sarah found herself engaging targets from multiple directions, requiring split-second decisions about target priority and ammunition management. Her years of training took over as muscle memory guided her movements and decision-making processes. Through her earpiece, Sarah could hear Rodriguez coordinating the team's movement toward the extraction point. Williams had rejoined the team leader after evading the search parties, and Thompson was moving parallel to their route while maintaining radio contact with headquarters. The extraction helicopter was en route but wouldn't arrive for another 90 minutes. Sarah's ammunition supply was becoming a critical factor as the engagement continued. She had started the mission with approximately 200 rounds of rifle ammunition, but the intensity of the firefight was depleting her supply rapidly. Each shot had to count, requiring her to be increasingly selective about targets while maintaining enough suppressive fire to keep enemy fighters from overwhelming her position. The enemy fighters were demonstrating increasing sophistication in their assault on Sarah's position. They had identified several possible locations where she might be hiding and were beginning to coordinate simultaneous assaults from multiple directions. Sarah realized that her current position was becoming untenable and that she would need to move to a completely different area of the ridge to continue the fight. As Sarah prepared to reposition, she observed additional enemy vehicles arriving at the compound below. Reinforcements were being brought in to join the search, increasing the odds against her survival. Through her rifle scope, she could see enemy fighters organizing into coordinated assault teams, clearly preparing for a final push to eliminate the sniper who had caused so much damage to their operation. Early to their surveillance positions. Sarah would establish a sniper hide approximately 800 meters from the target compound, while the rest of the team set up closer observation posts. The plan called for 72 hours of surveillance, after which they would extract to a predetermined pickup point. Everything about the mission felt routine, almost mundane compared to some of the high-risk operations Sarah had conducted in the past. The target area was in a region where American forces regularly conducted operations, local intelligence indicated minimal threat levels, and the team had extensive experience working together. Sarah allowed herself to think that this might actually be one of those rare missions that went exactly according to plan. As the helicopter lifted off into the pre-dawn darkness, Sarah gazed out at the terrain below and mentally reviewed the mission timeline. She had no way of knowing that enemy forces had been tracking American operations in the region for weeks, waiting for the perfect opportunity to spring a trap. She couldn't have imagined that what appeared to be a simple surveillance mission would become a desperate fight for survival against overwhelming odds. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test everything Sarah had learned about warfare, survival, and the true meaning of being a Navy SEAL.